So as we know, Tennessee recently passed a set of laws that would ban schools from teaching certain race-related topics out of the fear that students might actually learn the full history of their country. So once that opened up, there's these new groups of mom groups that you know, moms and families and freedom and liberty types of groups with those types of titles, names in their titles, that suddenly popped up, and now they're questioning everything that's in many of these schools now. And we'll get to many of those things, but I was fascinated by the sexy seahorses. I promise we're gonna get to that part. That's the best part to me. But let's see where it all got started, first of all. From the Daily Beast did report about this. Registering its website in late 2020, the group Moms for Liberty is one of the series of conservative education groups to spring up in the wake of this 2020's racial justice protests. The group is currently involved in battles against in-school mask mandates, obviously, as well as a particularly heated fight over school books in Tennessee's Williamson County. In June, the group's leader, who does not have children in the district, authored a letter to the Tennessee Department of Education complaining that the district's curriculum violated a new state law against the teaching of some race-related subjects in public schools. The MFL, of course, short for this group, specifically took issue with curriculum items about Martin Luther King Jr., Ruby Bridges, protests during the civil rights movement, and school segregation. So it didn't just end there. Like you would think maybe it would be like, oh, they're rampaging against Martin Luther King and against civil rights stories and things that really happened and how things came together. No, there's more things. Accompanying that letter is an 11-page spreadsheet with complaints about books on the district's curriculum, ranging from popular books on civil rights heroes to books about poisonous animals. Johnny Appleseed, they said that story is sad and dark. The Greek and Roman mythology, this illustration of the goddess Venus naked coming out of the ocean, a story of Tantalus and how he cooks up, serves, and eats his son. Woo, that is kind of, that's dark.
Kind of like when Abraham was going to kill his firstborn son for God.
It's a little too dark.
Oh yeah, that's dark.
They also said multiple books that contain Spanish or French Creole words. They received warnings from the group for potentially confusing children. An article about crackdowns on civil rights demonstrations, meanwhile, is deemed inappropriate for negative view of firemen and police. Again, an article about crackdowns on civil rights demonstrators, they deemed shouldn't be put toward these schools because it's a negative view of firemen and police. I'd be willing to argue that the negative view of firemen and police came from the negative things that firemen and police did. Anyway, also a fictional book about the Civil War, which was given to 5th graders, is deemed inappropriate, in part due to depictions of, quote, out of marriage families between white men and black women. Whose fault was that? And descriptions of white people as bad or evil. All these things had to be scrapped from the system. Again, this is the concrete things that came from the discussions about critical race theory and how we have to protect our children from learning about all these things that make them want to hate our country. The things that make them maybe love their country is knowing what their country has been through and if their country has moved past them. What they might discover is that the country hasn't fully moved past those things. That might generate some of the anger that you're worried about these young people do. Now the war on Galileo, Cenk.
Yes. Okay, hold on. So there's two parts of the story. There's the absurdity and how deeply offensive it is to say don't teach history because it might show what we actually did. And I want to comment on that first, but you're gonna love the Galileo part, and you're gonna love the Seahorses.
Let's go to the race stuff, their view against things about race. We'll go that really fast. I promise we'll get to Galileo, but if you have thoughts.
Yeah, let's do that. All right, so.
I love how JR talks to Cenk like a child. I promise you, son. We'll
I want to get to Galileo and Seahorses, I do, Daddy. Okay, anyways, but you'll see my excitement when we get to it. All right. So, but let's talk about the serious stuff first. So they say among the people they don't want to teach are Martin Luther King. Wait, I thought you guys said that he was on your side. You turn on Fox News any day. In fact, one of Martin Luther King's maybe daughters spoke out against Josh Mandel just the other day, Republican Senate candidate in Ohio, saying don't talk about my dad as if he's on your side. He wasn't on your side, right? But all that, oh yeah, Martin Luther King, he was colorblind. I mean, he would have been a Republican. He's definitely a right winger. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're teaching the real history of Martin Luther King? Ban it. We don't want any piece of that. But the one that really stuck out to me is Ruby Bridges. So she's the 6-year-old girl who was the first to desegregate a school in Louisiana in 1960. She was just a girl. They had to bring in the US Marshals so that racists wouldn't murder her. But she didn't know, Like, even if you're a racist, you didn't do anything wrong, I think, but I don't know the racist mind well enough. But why can't we study Ruby Bridges, right? No, because they don't actually want you to learn the history. That's the whole point, because the history bothers them. And to that point, my favorite one was this. They said the book, First Nations of North America, Plains Indians, quote, paints white people in a negative light. Yeah, well, when you do a genocide and you kill most of the folks there and you give them disease, etc. I don't know how we paint that in a positive light, okay? But I got news for you, that happened. And by the way, you knucklehead right-wingers, we're not like you. We don't think in terms of race. So we don't think, it was all white people, and that means we gotta go get white people now, and we gotta call them violent and dumb and make sure they don't get anything and discriminate against them and do all that stuff. No, it just means that's what happened. And we could all learn from it because we're all fellow human beings and we could all get better together, but they don't think that way. They think in terms of race, so they think, if they teach this, then that's anti-white. No, you fools. Jesus. But all right, I want to let Mark weigh in too before we get to the super fun stuff.
Well, I'll just quickly say it because I know you've got the Galileo thing, but we've been whitewashing history since the very beginning. I mean, it's it goes back to listen to how they tell the Thanksgiving story. I mean, you walk away with the sense that the white man and the Native Americans sat down and they shared, and there just was nothing on that scale going on. I mean, from the very earliest settlers in this country. And on, the history has been rewritten, reshaped, and completely undercut. I mean, the actual events have been completely undercut. So this comes as no surprise to me, but the political movement part of it is just offensive.
Galileo. Let's go into
it.
So also at one juncture in this same group, this Moms for Liberty, I believe, they implored the school district to include more charitable descriptions of the Catholic Church when teaching a book about astronomer Galileo, who was persecuted by this same church for suggesting that the earth revolves around the sun. They want more charitable descriptions of the church that persecuted him for saying the truth. That's part of this whole thing. One more piece from this. Where's the hero is what they said. Where's the hero of the church? In contrast to their mistakes, there are so many opportunities to teach children the truth of our history as a nation. The church has a huge and lasting influence on American culture. Both good and bad should be represented. The Christian church is responsible for the genesis of hospitals, orphanages, social work, charity, just to name a few. So why are we getting on this whole Galileo teaching?
No, that's unbelievable. So guys, if you want to talk about the positive parts of the church and that's part of our history, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. We'd love to teach that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you say, hence, don't teach Galileo, I mean, how do you not see that that's mental? And by what did the Catholic Church do, if you don't remember? They said, you think that the earth is not the center of the universe? That the sun doesn't revolve around the earth? We're gonna murder you. Okay, they threatened to execute him for telling the truth. I don't know how we paint that in a positive light. Help me out here, okay? And JR, it's okay. You're a newsman, but you got the name of the group a little bit wrong. It's the new MAGA, Moms Against Galileo. Again. Several hundred years later, we're back. We're still fighting this battle. No. Everything revolves around the earth. That's what some priest told me 1,000,000 years ago.
This is crazy. Let me get to the sex of Seahorses really fast. We have a couple minutes. So the same group in the Williamson County chapter also takes issue with this picture book about seahorses, in part because it depicted, quote, mating seahorses with pictures of positions, they spelled that wrong, and discussion of the male carrying the eggs. Readers look for a Kama Sutra of a seahorse type of thing they're looking for, but instead, this book called The Shyest Fish in the Sea contains nothing more risque than the watercolor illustrations of two seahorses holding tails or touching bellies. The passage that describes this describes how they have sex. They twist their tails together and twirl gently around, changing color until they match. Seahorses are faithful to one mate and often pair up for life. Isn't that sweet? Today's seahorse mate is full of ripe eggs. The two of them dance until sunset, and then she puts her eggs into his pouch. Barber seahorse is made every few weeks during the breeding season. Only the male seahorse has a pouch. Only the female seahorse can grow eggs. These things are facts about seahorses and their existence. Let's not teach
You're making me hot.
Man, you're getting on the edge with Mark Thompson there, man. Mark, you're right. That is super high. I didn't know they were going to twirl their tails like that.
Yeah,
I mean, my God,
right,
what is wrong with these people? Like, do you really think a seahorse twirling its tail? But reality is, it probably, I mean, I'm trying to read their crazy minds. Probably they're concerned the male is carrying the eggs. Now, it's actually the female that lays the eggs, but the male carries it in his pouch, and they're like, huh, God did not intend it that way. Actually, he did. He did. It's in nature. That's how seahorses actually made.
So some Galileo.
I didn't do that. God did that.
Galileo would say something like that.
Oh, we're out of time. Okay, members, we got so much more for you. It's hilarious. tyt.com/join or hit the join button below on YouTube. We'll see you there. Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.